Welcome to the NPQSL Introductory Briefing. Lead Facilitator Vanessa MacDonald will now take you through the briefing slides.
Thank you. So welcome colleagues, and congratulations for getting through the application stage. And thank you for choosing Outstanding Leaders Partnership and Best Practice Network as your provider. We have a very high number of applicants from all around the country and internationally, as far afield as Russia and Argentina in the past. So it's a really exciting prospect for everyone as we start this fourth intake of the new reformed NPQSL, with our aspiring and current school leaders working with a very diverse educational landscape. We want you, as colleagues participating in the NPQSL, to be even better leaders than their starting point and gain the qualification and senior leadership jobs is the added value to this. Okay. So this is the who's who. You'll come across a lot of these people over your journey of the next 12 to 18 months. So there's the mug shots. Just so you know, so I'm the lead facilitator. Kate, who you heard just before, is the program coordinator. So you probably get quite a few emails from Kate. When you get into the dizzy heights of assessment, you'll hear from Gemma and Alison and Freya. And Phil, you will come across because he's very much involved in your online learning, and more about that to come. And Hamish as well, you will hear from, who will organise quite often the briefings and send you emails about briefings. So that's just the mugshots and the who's who. We're there really to make sure that you have an easy route through, that we provide you with quality, that we make sure that we allay any fears that you may have, make sure we can get the right culture really for you, for your development and learning. And any concerns at all, any one of us will be very happy to try and support you in sorting those out. Okay, so the purpose of this session is very much to give you a very brief insight into the Outstanding Leaders Partnership, what the journey looks like for you, for your NPQSL, that important bit, and those steps that you need to think about and consider undertaking to familiarise yourself with, to make sure you've got that smooth transition onto the programme through the next 12 to 18 months as you work through. It doesn't mean you won't have questions at the end, but we're hoping that this answers a lot of those questions and allays any fears or concerns you might have around what the process is. So if we move on to this slide, this is very much about the Outstanding Leaders Partnership, or OLP, as you'll see everything is branded with. Best Practice Network is the DFE's accredited provider and the leadership and management arm of OLP. Best Practice Network is accountable for the quality and standard of OLP provision. OLP itself is the leadership professional development arm of Best Practice Network. And OLP is a national school-led improvement partnership whose structure and governance is organised around 3 lead schools and academies. And they are the Aspire Academies Trust in the South, the Lead Academy Trust in the Midlands, and the Dean Trust in the North. OLP is supported strategically by a board led with regional delivery partner representatives from across the country. And we have over 70 partners nationally made up of mainstream schools, teaching school alliances, academies, independent schools and faith trusts. And OLP has national and international reach, with a significant number of candidates starting their MPQ development stage each year in the autumn and spring terms. And you can also see there that there are links with Chester and Liverpool Hope universities, which support accreditation towards masters, if that's something that you would like to consider and pursue. We're not going to touch on that today, but it's something that you can pick up at a later date. So this slide is very much just an overview of the vision and values that OLP have, very much committed to improving the outcomes for all learners through high quality leadership development. And that is through, in this case, the national professional qualifications at each of the levels, ML, SL, H and EL. And we very much look at that school-led partnership and look at how we could provide access to outstanding leadership development. It is designed by school leaders for school leaders, and it's very much reviewed and adjusted from the feedback that we get so that it meets the needs of the school-led system. We have a combination of that national quality assurance and also local quality assurance to make sure that we are improving and checking in on the quality of what you're receiving. And we do look at how that measurement of what you've been doing impacts on yourself, on your learners, and on your contexts. The core characteristics that OLP has are underpinned by these. So in order to get it right for every trainee, these characteristics underpin the qualification. We provide a range of different opportunities which include these signature characteristics, whilst keeping a reality check and a balance between gaining the qualification and doing the day job. The qualification has evolved and it's underpinned and evaluated by each of these characteristics. The qualification is not easy and it does have very challenging components. However, the ability to communicate and engage through a range of mediums and groups of leaders has been cited by colleagues as significant in this leadership development stage. The NPQ programme has been set up to ensure that programmes are school-led, with quality and effective schools and organisation during design and development. We also look at the national and internationally consistent elements, making sure that we provide value for money, that they're credible and coherent, and that there is a commitment to quality school leadership's professional development, which is ongoing. We ensure that we have quality and ambition for you, and as a result we have a rigorous assessment process, and that's scaffolded by the national standard framework. We want to make sure that you have a successful leadership learning journey and that it's effective through the application of what you do in the schools that you work with. So it's not just about gaining the qualification, but it's also about your standard of study and the leadership practice that you apply into your own contexts. The metrics are those that are defined by the DFE, and they're just there on that slide just so you can have a quick look at the different metrics. They are what OLP look at, we review on a regular basis against each of those metrics. We report against each of those metrics, and that's to ensure that we have representation from different groups, where there are schools with different challenges, and we also make sure that we are supporting you in getting to your final assessment, and that the final assessment reviews and moderation ensures that your final assessments are 95% accurate in terms of which meet the criteria that you need to fulfill as you work through your journey. Okay, I'm not going to linger on that slide. This slide is to do with the course components. And this is very much about you now beginning to understand how the course sits together. So there are 6 content areas that you can see there in the left-hand column. They are the content areas which are assessed. Underneath each of these content areas, there are specific assessment criteria which are aligned to them. And at this point in time, as you begin your journey, it is really critical that you recognise the importance of aligning the project work that you're going to undertake and that you will submit at final assessment that covers each of the criteria under each of the content areas. And the best way of identifying that is to have a good look at the assessment guidance that you will be asked to look at as a pre-task. And it's your Bible, so it's something that you need to get very familiar with, the assessment guidance. So those 6 content areas, just to reiterate, are the 6 content areas which are assessed through the project that you will undertake, and each of those 6 areas has a number of assessment criteria which you must fulfill in order to be successful. The 7 behaviours, which are on the right-hand side, are also embedded into the qualification, and they are addressed to your interaction with other peers, your tutors, the facilitators who will be supporting you on the leadership journey, and your sponsor/mentors within school. And it is expected when you come to final assessment that you will also weave in how you have developed and demonstrated those behaviours during the course of your NPQSL. This slide tells you a little bit about how the course has been designed, and these are the coat hangers, if you like, as to how it works. You'll see there that there are only 3 columns that take 3 of the content areas. The other 3 content areas, which are leading with impact, increasing capability, and working in partnership, are interwoven into these 3 main courses. So to reiterate, the 3 columns, strategy and improvement, teaching and curriculum excellence, managing resources and risks, are the 3 online courses that you will undertake. Within those 3 online courses, the other 3 content areas are interwoven. The rows, referencing module 1, 2, 3, and 4, relate to the weeks that you will undertake. So, for example, strategy and improvement takes 4 weeks online. Module 1 would equate to week 1, module 2 to week 2, etc. The overarching, if you like, heading under module 1 for each of the courses just gives you a flavour of what kind of information may be within that module or that week. And you can see that in strategy and improvement, which is your first online course, you're looking at the context for change, and that's something your project has to look at. You're looking at that strategic development within the school. And then week 2, you look at vision and how you look at the environment within your school and what it is you're looking to change. 3 is linked to relationships and partnerships and collaboration, and 4 is how you change the culture so it's embedded and sustained. And we work through each of the online courses in that way so that you can see that you cover an awful lot of information. And we'll explain how the online courses fit in a couple of slides. So we're really looking at connecting then what you learn online through the online courses, and then how you follow that up in your face-to-face work, and then your work-based practice as well. And the higher level qualifications is part of this blended learning package. So if I move on to the next slide, you can see how this sits together. So we've gone through the content areas, and if we look at the blue boxes of facilitated learning, after this induction webinar, you will start your first online course, and then you get your first face-to-face day or equivalent. And your face-to-face day is very much about applying your learning from the online course. So it's not about extra learning, it's about application of what you've learned into a different context. And we use things like case studies, we use collaborative tasks, we use paired work, lots of different ways of combining that on a face-to-face day. So each of your online courses precedes your face-to-face days. And that's that blue line across the middle. Supported by that, the enrichment is very much things like assessment webinars. You will get invited to expert speaker webinars, so that's usually led by head teachers across that period of time. The self-directed row, which is in the grey, you will start with a diagnostic at the beginning of the course, which will cover both the content areas and the behaviour. Then you will spend the time developing your school-based improvement project, which is the assessed element, and at the end point you have the opportunity to resit your diagnostic, which will tell you how you have developed both in your content areas and in your behaviours, and is a useful tool for you to then assess your development areas. Okay, if you are going through the distance learning model, it differs very little, except there are no face-to-face days for you. So the face-to-face days are replicated through those things there. 3 recordings of the key elements. So the key elements from the face-to-face days are still taken, and then they are delivered in a briefing of approximately an hour, which complements your learning. And then you'll be asked to undertake a set of 3 short follow-up activities. Again, they complement what people will be doing on the face-to-face days, so you're getting the same degree of information and opportunity to apply what you've learned in the online courses. The expectation is that they are then validated by your mentor stroke sponsor, and that relationship is going to be very key for you between the mentor and the sponsor, particularly from a distance learning perspective, but actually those of you that are going through the face-to-face route, that's also a very important relationship that we will come back to. So distance learners, that is your model, which complements and reflects the face-to-face day model. This is your leadership learning journey, and we've touched on this a little bit by looking at the diagram. So you will have 2 leadership diagnostics, as we said, one at the beginning and one at the end of the time that you are on the NPQSL course. You have 3 online courses which are facilitated. They are facilitated in a 4-week period, so each online course lasts 4 weeks. And within that 4-week online course, there are 9 compulsory core tasks for you to do, and that equates to 2 per week, apart from in week 4 where there are 3, 2 of which are related to content and 1 which is a final reflective task. There are those 3 facilitated face-to-face days which come after your online courses and the equivalent of your distance. Your vehicle moving towards final assessment is that improvement project, and more of that in a minute. And you also have 2 recorded online assessment briefings during the duration of your journey to support you with that final assessment and getting ready for it. So that's essentially part of the journey, which equates to the diagram we looked at prior. This next slide is to do with compliance, the things that you are required to do. So the 3 online courses are part of compliance, as are the 9 core tasks per online course. You do need to attend your practice-based events or equivalent the distance learner activities, and key is the completion of your school improvement project. Linked to that, you are expected to submit your project overview and sponsor checklists onto Canvas. That will become more apparent as you work through the expectations of the course. The project overview is something that goes to your online tutor. They have a look at what you're proposing after you have spoken to your sponsor about it, and give you an indication of whether they feel that it's likely to fulfill the criteria or whether you may need to consider it. And your sponsor mentor checklists are there to support you at each phase that you work through, and for them to check against the criteria that you're on track and also fulfilling the criteria. You are expected to submit your school-based project for final assessment within 12 to 18 months of starting the qualification. We do encourage you and recommend that that is in the 12 or 15-month window, so that school-based project. That allows us then, if you've got any issue with the 12 or 15 months, that you have that 18-month wriggle room. You can, of course, submit in the 18 months. That is there as an option, but it's there just in case there is any issue on the 12 to 15 months. This is just a guidance on the study breakdown that you can see there, and the different layers, so executive leader level, headship, senior leadership and middle leadership. Your online study note is also linked to work-based practice and in-school research. and you are not required to attend head-led webinars. They are there for you to dip into as an enrichment activity. So it just gives you an indicator, and that's how the blended learning also sits together. Okay, now I'm going to walk you through the project. So for NPQSL, this is what you are expected to do as you come to final submission. So you need to lead an improvement project across your school. When you come to write it up on the submission form, that is a 5,000 word write-up. I'm not going to go into detail about what that looks like, but there will be some examples on your learning network so you can have a dip in if you want to have a look at what other people have done. But it is in 2 parts. So you need to work across the school to initially reduce variation in pupil progress and attainment, and to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of teaching. So it's a 2-fold project. It must hit both of those overarching themes when you're considering your project. You do need to lead your improvement project across a minimum of 2 terms. And at the end, you submit a written account of the project that covers the design, the implementation, and the evaluation of the programme. And they are the phases that you work in as you work through the programme. So we support you in working at the design phase initially, then the implementation phase, and finally the evaluation phase. The criteria that you have to fulfil are also aligned to different phases, and they are linked to the sponsor checklists that we spoke about prior. So just to reiterate, because this is really important, your project, when you're considering it, needs to hit the 2 themes of reducing variation and improving the efficiency and effectiveness of teaching. We often get asked, what does across the school mean? So this is your definition of across the school. It gives you an insight. It's not definitive. It gives you an insight in supporting you to consider whether your project is across the school. And you will get these slides later, so it'll just give you a flavour of it now. So you can see it's more to do with the colleagues that you're working with and the number of colleagues that you're working with, rather than the number of children, students or pupils. So we usually say, as a rule of thumb, that it's the number of adults that somebody in your school who is a senior leader would normally be expected to manage. And obviously that is going to differ depending on the context in which you are working. So when you're considering it, think about the context, the senior leaders in your context, and how many adults they are expected to lead and manage. And then really your project should equate to that. Your online tutors will support you in assessing and deciding whether that has sufficient scope or not. Obviously, middle leadership is very much about team, so we expect it to be beyond your direct team. And that's why we've indicated things like in primary, that could be a key stage, or in secondary, 3 or 4 teams, whatever that may look like. This is how the phases work. So this slide shows you how the phases work. So you can see on the left-hand column, that's your project, that you are leading an improvement project. The project is then in 3 phases. We don't allocate terms per se to those. Your design phase and implementation phases are likely to be longer than your evaluation phase. It is a minimum of 2 terms to obviously make sure you have impact on your project in those 2 areas, reducing variation and improving teaching. And on the right hand side, you can see that you have a list of supporting materials and evidence. Those supporting materials and evidence elements are the ones that are defined by the DFE, and they are the expected and required documents. So they're not a choice. You will have each of those when you come to final submission. So you will have raw data analysis, which will be essentially your baseline data analysis that defines where your variation will come from. You will have your pupil performance data, which is likely to be your mid and end point data, so certainly the one that you're using as evaluations phase to determine the impact. You will have a communication plan, a business case, a risk management plan, and your sponsor is also expected to complete sponsor comments for very specific criteria, as well as supporting your overall submission form. I know that's probably like knitting fog at the moment, and you will get support in how to develop each of those different supporting documents, both through the online course and through the project page on your learning network, which I'm going to just go through with you as we get towards the end of this briefing. So just to reiterate, you do need to make sure you're leading an improvement project, and that you are able to fulfill all of the criteria and be able to submit those required support materials on the right-hand column. Again, you will find all the information for that in your assessment guidance to support you. Now, this person called your mentor, or sometimes sponsor, but usually your mentor, is there to really support you. And it's imperative that this is a very strong relationship, that your mentor has the time and capacity to support you, because they are there to support you both in your leadership development, your leadership learning, to check in on your application, to support you in the identification of your project, to challenge you on how you're doing with your project as you develop it through the different phases, and making sure that you are working through your compliance. At the end, they also have an invaluable role in completing elements of your submission form to support it, and the previous moderation of assessments has shown where mentors have been very detailed, not over detailed, but detailed in their responses and understood the criteria. It has really supported individual candidate submissions and allowing them to meet very successfully their final submission gradings. So your mentor role is very much about supporting your learning and understanding, helping you to plan how and when you intend to engage with the process, to really monitor your progress through the course, to help you to remove any barriers for you, especially with your school improvement project task, to really help with the checking of your documentation before you submit it, and to contribute to your final assessment. So it's really imperative that you work closely with them, and I would ask you to ask your mentors to watch the mentor briefing that you'll be able to find on the Learning Network, to agree with you what the protocols are for the relationship, how often you're going to meet, to schedule those meetings, what the focus of those meetings are, make sure that they're held regularly. And we don't give you a how frequently, but you know how much support you may need as an individual, and whether that's fortnightly, monthly, half-termly, but regular meetings, to make sure that you are sharing your progress with them and discussing any barriers that you may be coming up against, and to work collaboratively with them through your school improvement task. You need to make sure that you do give your mentor warning and time to complete the tasks that we're asking you to work in tandem with them on, and don't expect instant feedback or responses from them. The mentor checklists, I would recommend that you sit with them and work through, but they need to be familiar with the assessment guidance to support you with that. And certainly at final submission, you need to make sure that you are giving them plenty of time to respond to what their elements are on the submission form. Your other avenue of support is your online tutor, and you will have an online tutor for each of the 3 courses. Ideally, that will be the same person, so you will have the same person throughout the duration of your NPQSL journey, and they're very much there to support you in your familiarisation and application and identification of learning through the qualification. They are there to guide you and facilitate the online courses, So they will support you through the online courses in that 4-week window. They'll respond to your tasks. They'll ask you questions to get you to think more deeply about what you've submitted. And they will also check in on other submissions such as the project overview to help you with whether you are on the right lines with your project. They'll check in things like your mentor checklists to see where you may have any gaps. And they're very much having a pastoral role throughout your course. They are your go-to person after your in-school mentor. So if you have any concerns about anything, if you've got any challenges in terms of completion of deadlines, we would encourage you to always contact your online tutor. And if they can't answer the question, they will make sure that they direct that to somebody else who can within the team. So that is a really valuable, again, relationship that links to OLP and best practice, and they are your continuity through the program. Your face-to-face facilitators see less of you, in inverted commas. They may see you on a face-to-face, but they see less of you overarchingly. So your online tutor is the ones that are better placed to develop that relationship with you over a 12 to 18 month period. You then have your course coordinators, and they're very much to do with the operational side of the arm and making sure that that process and practice is really efficient and effective. So if you've got any questions about face-to-face events, that if you're unable to make something or you're unsure about any element of it to do with resources or location, then they are there to support you with that. They will always look for an alternative day if you're struggling with a particular day on a face-to-face, whatever reason. They'll identify an alternative for you as far as possible, or put you in touch with somebody who can support you with what you may not have been able to complete. They're there very much about if you've got any difficulties with continued engagement, they will get in touch. You can get in touch with them and they can talk you through the different options. There's always a route through. We've come across every possible issue combination of difficulties, and much as we don't want you to defer and would prefer you to stay with the group you're allocated with, we do have colleagues that need to defer for a whole variety of reasons, and there's always that option and possibility to defer your engagement or to support you with how you can play catch up if you've got a little bit behind. So if deferment is not your preferred option, but you'd like to look at how you can catch up, if you like, with the rest of your cohort. So please don't sit at home concerned that you're missing things or you're not where you want to be or there's other things happening in your lives, because they do. Just get in touch with the team and they will support you with your options. And as I say, there's always an option. So I'm just going to park that for a minute, and that's the people who can support you. And we're now going to look at dates. So the dates wise, I just need to give you the kind of rough dates that things fall into. So in terms of face-to-face, there are 2-week delivery windows. And the delivery windows are, as they say there. So depending on what group you're with, you will be allocated a face-to-face day within those windows. The slide does say again, we'll try and allocate you to an alternative if you contact the team. If you're a distance learner, again, the briefing and the activities will be delivered to you within that same delivery window. So the expectation of the fortnight is the same. So they're the 3 face-to-face days or equivalent. The next slide shows you the online course date windows. So your 4 weeks would start on the 11th of March and would complete on the 5th of April. That looks like a very long period of time, but it is 4 weeks, and the expectation to complete those tasks within that 4 weeks is in there. You need to consider some tips for your online courses when you're going to find time to study for your online. So some people prefer to do it in a block at the weekend, other people prefer to go on 2 or 3 times a week. you've got to decide whether you're better off after school and staying behind, whether you can do it during the school day. It just, you know, some people try and put it all into a school holiday. My recommendation, my strong recommendation, is that you do little and often, that you do the tasks in the week that are allocated to them as far as possible, and you do not race ahead and do all 9 tasks in a week and a half, because you do not benefit from the interaction with the other people in your group. And you learn a lot from the interaction with the people in your group and their practice, and what you learn from their practice and their responses to different tasks. So little and often would be my strong recommendation. If you know during that facilitation window that you have a residential and you're not going to be able to go on, then again, email your online tutor, explain that you're likely to go quiet for a week, and then you might have to double up somewhere in a week on your tasks, and at least then they know. I'd also try and do the tasks sequentially so that you're not jumping through the task at different orders, but occasionally there might be one where you need a bit more time, or you need to go and talk to your head teacher or colleagues or governors to gain information, and you may not be able to do it in that week allocated. So again, you can flex on it, but try to stick to the tasks in the dates and the weeks that are allocated, and then you get the most out of the interaction with the other people on your online group. And there are usually 20-24 of you within a group who are interacting. You'll find out more about that prior to starting your strategy improvement course, and it will all become obvious once you start. Okay. Assessment windows feel like they're probably a very long way off, but they're broadly speaking the different assessment windows. Roughly 12, 15 and 18 months after you begin the course. You do not need to, at this point, decide which submission window. It's up to you. The dates are insight into when they're likely to be open, broadly speaking. They're usually open for approximately a month, and you'll get confirmation of the dates later on, and you'll find those on your learning network as well. So the windows, once they're confirmed, will be within the learning network. Even though we strongly recommend, as we said before, you submit in the 1st or 2nd month window, you can apply in the window 3, and in really strongly extenuating circumstances, there may be possibilities of extending it beyond window 3. But we're encouraging you to submit in windows 1 and 2 and give that window 3 as your kind of fallback position. This is a lovely slide that talks you through the different VLE aspects. So Canvas is your VLE, and on Canvas you will have 2 elements. You'll have your learning network, and you can see that on the bottom left. Your learning network is your go-to place. If you're not sure about the dates for your submissions, the dates for your face-to-face days, when the online courses are, you will have that on your learning network on a tab called Syllabus. It's also where you will find all of your resources. So you'll find your face-to-face day resources, you'll find briefing links, you'll find assessment information, and you will also find your project plan support, and I'll come back to that in a minute. That is updated. That is where anything you're not sure what's what can usually be found. I'm not going to swear that everything's on there, but usually that's where you will find pretty much everything that you could possibly want. You will then be introduced and have another tab within Canvas to each of your online courses. So don't confuse online course with Learning Network. Learning Network is your go-to page. Your online course tab will be just for your strategy and improvement course initially, and that's where you will work through your 9 core tasks. As I say, you've got that group, we talked about that group of about 20-25 people all over the country, and that's where you're involved in those different activities. You also have a 360 diagnostic that you'll get a link to that you can undertake, and you need to get others to actually do that for you as well, so that you get that full rounded picture and you'll be able to look at that one. The e-portfolio is a tool where you can start putting all your evidence together ready for your final assessment, and that's something that will be dealt with later on. And then there are also assessment support briefings to support you during your course, and we said there'd be those 2 briefings. Just to reassure you that there will be a Canvas with Confidence briefing recording that will be shared along the Canvas welcome email, and that will explain in greater detail the course structure, the navigation principles, and will provide you with a step-by-step completion guide for the Canvas induction unit to help you prepare for your first elements of engagement. So don't worry if it all sounds a little bit weird and confusing. It will become much, much more intuitive, and when you've done the Canvas with Confidence, it will be a lot easier. In terms of the online aspects, again, prior to your Strategy and Improvement online course, there will be an online course Engagement Principles briefing recording, and that will explain to you the key expectations of candidates and tutors for all the online courses and help prepare candidates for the 4-week-long facilitator window, and how their online tutor will support and challenge them through the qualification. So you'll get some additional information. So quite a lot of information to take in. We're almost there. So the last couple of slides, I just want to point out here the school improvement project pages. So on your learning network, there'll be a tab that says project page. And this is being put together to help support you in developing your project, and it'll tell you what does it require. There's a little section there, how to support you in planning your project, and how to support you in the monitoring and evaluation of your project. Towards the bottom of that page, there are also some example templates for some of the processes. So you may recall that we talked about some of those key documents that you've got, such as the communications plan, the risk management plan. You'll find there's some templates there for you right at the beginning of this whole process, and they are there to support you for filling out those documents for final assessment. And it may be that you want to download those right at the beginning, consider how you might start to fill them in, and then you will get additional support for how to fill them in as you work through your online courses and face-to-face days. There's also a link to a little short webinar recording on that page to talk you through how you can use that page and utilize those templates. So that's just a heads up really, if that's something that you want to have a look at before you get stuck into your school improvement project, to have a look at what's there to support you. Top tips really for you is make a plan. Think about your timescales, think about those dates, what's coming up and when, how you're going to fit that into your day job, and how you're going to try and make sure you have a work-life balance of some description. Really think about that relationship with your mentor, how you're intending to work, whether you can negotiate any time for that. We can't say you have to have it, but whether there's any time that you can have to support you with completing it. Where you know there are pinch points in your own life, whether that's holidays, birthdays, anniversaries, other things that are coming in to do with school, like residentials, school trips, so just consider that. Do try not to fall behind with the work, particularly the core tasks. The core tasks, read them carefully. We have put word counts in to make sure that you keep your post succinct and to the point. There's no expectation of writing novels, so we do expect you to do that and keep to the word counts. The little and often we've touched on earlier, do little and do it often, rather than trying to work your way through a mass of stuff at the end of a facilitated course, for example. And do keep your tutor, your online tutor, informed if you've got a problem. They do like to know, and they will email you if they've not heard from you, and if you email them back or let them know ahead of the game, then at least they know what to expect and whether to give you some wriggle room on completion of things. Finally, that's just a quote. I'm just going to leave it up for a minute. I know it's from an ML person, but SL, we've had similar quotes and impact. They do have extremely positive impact, your projects, both on you and your behaviours and your leadership development, but also on the schools that you work in. And I'm sure as you start your journey and you think about your project, you'll see how much in 12, 15 months' time that impact has had. Finally, if you do have any questions, and I'm sure there will be some, do contact the team via CPD@. When you've got your online tutor, if it's something you think they can answer, by all means email them as well, but do contact the team, and there are their contact details. Other than that, I wish you all the very best on your journey over the next 12 to 18 months. Enjoy it, be challenged by it, learn from it, and when you come to do your reflective pieces, you'll be surprised at how much learning you've taken and how well you've applied it into your different contexts. And thank you for listening.